As I said, in a way, I wanted to start with this story to set the stage for the battles that our doctors are facing. And it's not just in Delhi, but across the country. As the city of Mumbai, for example, the epicenter of the coronavirus, it's the hospital doctors who are facing a major challenge. There is a shortage of hospital beds, especially in the municipal hospitals, and a delay, some say, in testing too. India Today's reporters Vidya and Mustafa conduct a status check on the hospital situation in Mumbai. Here's their report.
The day the new Municipal Commissioner of Mumbai, I.S. Chahal, visited BYL Nair Hospital, Ashok Ramadugu's relative was waiting on the road outside this hospital, hoping to be admitted.
नायर हॉस्पिटल जाने के बाद वो लोगों ने जो डॉक्टर्स या नर्सेस वगैरह उन्होंने डायरेक्ट क्यू में खड़ा किया और बोला लाइन में खड़ा रहो फिर हम लोग टेस्ट करेंगे। जैसा वो बाहर आ गया वो पूरा पसीना से लपटा हुआ था कि ऐसा घबराहट उनके मन में आ गया ये लोग मुझे क्या कर रहे हैं।
Ironically, this death didn't even make it to India's COVID statistics because the hospital marked the dead on the death certificate as a suspected COVID patient.
Inconvenience to patients in Mumbai was on two fronts. First was getting a hospital bed and then getting tested. Rising number of cases led to shortage of hospital beds. A lot of hospital staff fell prey to COVID-19, which made hospital wary of admitting patients. At the same point of time, there was changing guidelines of testing by the BMC, which made it difficult for patients to get tested in time.
Despite assurances from the government, there is now a feeling in Mumbai that civic hospitals are running short on medicines, equipment, staff and hospital beds.
एक बेड पे तीन पेशेंट और जैसे बेड पे जब पेशेंट मरता है उनको भी इन लोग जल्दी से फटक से लेके नहीं जाते। नॉर्मल पेशेंट के पास 4-10 घंटा उधर बॉडी रखते।
Mumbai has 5 major public hospitals, 16 peripheral municipal hospitals and 6 specialty hospitals in addition to a large number of private ones. Shortage of beds is being reported for critical patients across dedicated COVID hospitals. These hospitals are equipped with ICU facilities and have ventilator support and are reserved for patients who are critical.
फैसिलिटी बन रही है MMRDA में। इस टाइम वहाँ पे हैंडिंग टेकिंग ओवर चल रहा है इन्वेंट्री का MMRDA और BMC का। 800 बेड की तैयारी हो चुकी है, तो कल से हम वहाँ पे काम शुरू करेंगे अपना। तो बेड की कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। इस टाइम हमारे पास सब मिला के 50,000 के ऊपर बेड हैं और हम जल्दी 1 लाख पे पहुंचने वाले हैं।
For doctors who are at the front line in the fight against COVID-19, the danger is more. The Maharashtra state government has decreased the quarantine period for doctors on duty from 7 days to 2 days, putting them at high risk. Dr. Mazhar Khan, a resident doctor, has not gone home since 24th of February because he's afraid he may infect his family.
5 days work and 2 days quarantine system. This is illogical. This doesn't serve the purpose. If any resident with 7-day work and 7-day quarantine, we already have 18 residents who are positive. With 5-day working and 2 days quarantine, it is going to affect us badly. And if one person turns out to be positive, and he will spread it to everybody because we don't have that break and we cannot monitor whether that person has really contracted the infection.
BMC maintains that there is no shortage of bed. Even ICUs are sufficient for now. But patients and their relatives tell a different tale. Not knowing how to deal with the pandemic has only aggravated the fear.
And I want to focus today on doctors and the challenges of running the COVID hospitals. What should patients do? What can health workers do? I'm joined by two very special guests. Dr. Amit Anand, critical care and pulmonologist at the St. Elizabeth Medical Center in Boston, is joining me. He's been at the center of the COVID fight in that city. He is also an ex-alumni from Mumbai, of a Mumbai college, and also joining me is Dr. Jaleel Parkar, pulmonologist and someone who's managing what's happening at the COVID center in the Leelavati Hospital in Mumbai. Let me come to you for a moment, Dr. Jaleel Parkar, first, because you're there in Mumbai. You are, in a way, at the front line. How bad is the situation at the moment in hospitals when it comes to overcrowding as well as testing?
Well, Rajdeep, from where we started as admitting COVID patients, I think it has gone from bad to worse. Initially, we were all taken aback because we were not ready for this illness. Anyhow, we streamlined it in a week or so. And at that time, the volumes were not so high. Now the volumes are so much that we are unable to cope up with. Our ICU beds are always full. And so are the flip-flops of, testing COVID positivity, COVID negativity. That has become a major concern because we are unable to handle these changes practically every alternate day.
Now, what do you mean by the flip-flops? What do you mean by flip-flops?
Patient who is
what do you mean, Dr. Parker, by flip-flops?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. For example, what has happened is initially they said that any patient who tests for COVID positivity, he should not be discharged from hospital unless he becomes COVID negative. Now the reports that used to come in those, I'm talking about a month and a half, 2 months earlier, the reports used to take sometimes 4 days or 5 days for the reports to be known whether they are COVID positive or negative. So by this time, the volume started increasing and our beds were full. So when we decided to discharge the patients when they were COVID negative, then came in that only patients who are going to be hospitalized for any surgery, they should have their COVID test done prior to admission, as well as their HRCT.
Right.
Then it was said that you don't need to do any COVID test for any patient. Then it was said that even if you are COVID positive and if you are symptomatic, you can stay at home. Now this has caused a major heartburn, not only amongst the medical fraternity, but also for the people at large, because everybody who comes, they are so concerned and there is so much of panic that neither the hospital is able to take control of that,
right.
neither are the patients or the patients' relatives. This has become a major issue, and today we are in such a state that nobody wants to go home because if they are COVID positive, they say we don't have huge apartments, we are staying in smaller apartments, maybe a bedroom or 2-bedroom, how are we going to isolate ourselves? So on one hand, we are talking of containment, which has become a total failure because of just the influx of population that we have, which is a curse to the city of Mumbai. And on the other hand,
right.
we want to give better treatment to the ones who are critically ill, who are coming into the hospital, but we are unable to give them beds because the patients are not getting discharged. They don't want to go home.
That's
so
a very
a major issue.
You have highlighted you've highlighted an extremely major issue there, Dr. Parker, and I'll come back to you in a moment to understand how that is causing a crisis within hospitals. I want to ask you there, Dr. Amit Anand, in Boston, because you, as I said, experienced this also over the last couple of months. What has been your experience for treating COVID patients as a critical care medical expert? The US worst hit in a way despite the advanced healthcare system. What have been the specific challenges?
Thank you for having me, Rajdeep. At the outset, I would like to say we were so underprepared for meeting a challenge like this. We could not have anticipated, the storm or the tsunami that was going to arrive at our doorsteps. It was an unknown. There was really no information from the get-go. And I think that sort of led to an underpreparedness in the medical community. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, there was a clear lack of appreciation about the nature of this contagion. In the beginning, there was a clear lack of appreciation about the nature of this contagion, the pathogenicity of this virus, its risk of transmission in an asymptomatic host, and the diversity and the duration of the symptom complex in a given individual. We certainly knew there was no cure. It exposed our vulnerabilities, the availability of PPE, the adequacy of respiratory and ventilatory support for the critically ill patient. Clearly, the lack of diagnostic testing at the beginning of this pandemic, and the lack of trained personnel to care for the sickest amongst our patients. We also had to sort of deal with the challenges of allocating space to patient care, both of the COVID and the non-COVID variety. There was really no coherent response, from our public health departments at the outset. It was a very fractured kind of message, all the way down from the CDC. But I think, in these last 2 months, right from our index case to what we're doing today, and thankfully we've flattened our curve and we're on the other side of our curve.
That's what I wanted to ask, because you managed to some extent in Boston to flatten the curve. What are the lessons? What are the learnings you had in the last 2 months that you can share with us after continuously dealing with COVID patients over these 2 months?
We've learned a few lessons, especially in the ICU. I can speak to the ICU experience, but I think it sort of goes across the medical spectrum. I think the first important thing that we've learned is that we have to team up, not only amongst ourselves, but our nursing colleagues alike, our surgical colleagues, respiratory therapists, the pharmacists, and even our palliative care people. The second thing, and there's no way out with testing, and there's certainly no way in without testing. You have to test. You have to test sometimes on multiple occasions. You got to test so that you can find out which part of the hospital they're going to be allocated to. Mm-hmm. You got to test when they're ready to be discharged so that they can be safely discharged to the appropriate setting. So there's really no way out with respect to testing. Once you test, then you have to triage the patients, and most of these patients can actually be sent home. Many of them will have no symptoms. Some of them will have symptoms, and really the ones who need oxygen are the ones who sort of come into the hospital. Timely treatment is key. We are under sort of no pretense over here that we are curing anyone. We certainly don't have a cure, the last I checked, but we're supporting them. And this is a very sort of rapidly growing field in sort of COVID care in terms of how do we take care of the sickest of our patients. We have to sort of speak with our colleagues across ICUs. There are nuances to sort of ICU care, and there's sort of a generality to care with respect to, COVID-19 in the ICU. I think the other thing that I would emphasize is if you have the capability to do telemedicine, use it wisely, use it in the outpatient setting, use it in the inpatient setting. It's extremely valuable, especially when you want to preserve PPE, not go into patient rooms, etc., and speak with your nursing staff at the bedside. I think finally, it's important to appreciate that you have to take some time outs for yourself, just to decompress, to debrief, to share your experience. At the end of the day, we're all humans, and the human experience is at the core of the clinical one, the medical one. Mm-hmm. In some ways, I've never been so happy to be a doctor, but in other ways, I've never been so scared to be a doctor, because you worry about bringing COVID home. So these are dialogues that you have to have amongst yourselves, with your families. I would also say that, once all of this is done, we have to prepare to sort of teach, train, and trust the next generation of providers, either on the front line or sort of even in the outpatient setting. And we have to sort of regain the trust of our public health officials, because they will help guide us, contact trace, once we test positive. So these are the few messages that I can sort of speak to with respect to our experience over the last 2 months.
You're hearing, Dr. Parkar, from Amit Anand, a very different experience in the United States in a way, because they obviously have to deal with fewer patients at the moment than you have to in Mumbai. Mumbai, as you said, is crawling with patients. What's the solution? Is the solution that those with mild symptoms simply stay at home and quarantine themselves, as is now being suggested, and only those serious, critically ill come to the hospital?
Well, Rajdeep, what I feel is that the scenario back in the US and over here is different because our demography is different. In a population of Mumbai, which is around 1.75 crores, or say 2 crores, we have around 75 lakhs to 1 crore who are living in the slums. So what are we talking about? Containment, is it going to help? No. The societies have become so paranoid that they don't allow even the maids to come in, the vegetable vendors to come in. There are elderly citizens who are staying, who need help, even to go to the toilet, even to change their dress, even to have a bath. I think we have to learn to live with COVID-19. And I
No,
think
what do you mean? What do you mean by live? What do you mean by live?
Stage 4.
What
Where
do you
are we
mean?
going? Where are we heading to?
No, what do you mean, doctor, when you say you've got to learn to live with coronavirus?
Well, you got to learn to live with it, because this close down is not going to help, and it is never going to end. Are you saying that you are going to close down for the coming 4 months, 5 months? Now you have contained everybody for the last more than 50 days, and today you see the people that are rushing towards the trains and the buses that to take them back home.
No, I take that point.
Is that containment?
No, I take
That's
your
again
point.
an
I'm
exposure.
asking you, do you want those who are mildly symptomatic to stay at home at the moment and only seriously critically ill to come? Otherwise, ventilators, you will run out of ventilators. There will be overcrowding of beds because there are just 4 or 5 municipal hospitals at the front line at the moment.
Absolutely true. The ones who don't have any symptoms but they have tested positive for COVID-19, or the ones who have mild symptoms like headache, body ache, fever to an extent which is very mild. If there is no breathlessness, I think they should treat themselves at home. But if they do not, if they become very breathless, they have to rush to the hospital. Because once you are in early ARDS or ARDS, there is no way of you turning back. So especially the elderly, the ones whose immunity is low, the ones who have who are on renal dialysis,
Right.
ones who are cardiac patients, diabetes, age is a factor. I think that should be looked into, because otherwise our triage, our screening centers, they all will be full, but there will be no beds in the ICUs remaining. And it's not that the institutes do not want to help the government, but we are on the verge of breaking down. You find the police force, they are walking and they just collapse on the road. You have health workers who are collapsing, nurses who are testing positive, ward boys who are testing positive, you have consultants who are testing positive, and it's chaos now right now. And I think we all should wake up. It's a wake-up call. Everybody should understand, rather than just beating around the bush and saying, no, we can't do this, we can't do that. Come on, we have to move on in life. The business houses have stopped. People are going to die of hunger. Where are they going to earn money, even to go back home? They have been paid salaries for 2 months, but if the employer does not earn the money, where is he going to pay the employees from?
Okay,
Hunger is going to be worse than COVID-19. Please get me.
Hunger is going to be worse than COVID-19. You're giving very strong remarks there, of course, as a doctor, and I know that you are very, very passionate about what is happening in Mumbai. Let me turn to you, Dr. Anand, for a moment. What about patients themselves? What would you suggest to patients and families? What kind of bedside treatment are you suggesting? As Dr. Parker is saying, in your original home city of Mumbai, there's a lot to worry. People are thinking, what would happen if I get COVID? There is an element of stigmatization. What's the advice to patients, importantly to families?
Yeah, so I think that's extremely important. Yes, we know that the elderly are more vulnerable to this disease, but across the spectrum, and I'm sure this will be reflected in databases that come out months after this pandemic is in the rearview mirror, is that people who are healthier, people who look after themselves, are more likely to recover, even with sick illness, even on a ventilator. I couldn't stress this enough. I mean, we've seen 80-year-old patients, who've left the hospital despite being on a ventilator. Yes, it's a painful, it's a lonely, it's a long process, sometimes 3 to 6 weeks in the hospital. But those who've looked after themselves, they're more likely to recover, even with comorbidity. So paying attention to your own health, your personal health, your nutrition, your sleep, your exercise, stress management. I mean, I couldn't say this enough. I mean, it's helped me, having grown up in India with sort of the yoga and meditation and pranayama. I practice this every day. It helps me stay centered. It would help keep our patients centered, keep them from sort of getting anxious or fearful about what's coming down the pike. I think it's extremely important for us to have dialogues with our elderly, with our parents, with our uncles, our aunts about their wishes for their health care. I mean, we shouldn't assume anything. And we have to honor them. If they don't want to be admitted to the hospital in an ICU on a ventilator, honor that wish. Have these difficult discussions. And I think it's also important to remember that, while COVID is on the forefront, there's a lot of non-COVID illness. And that can't wait. You telemedicine, speak to your doctors, speak to your friends and family, and get some guidance with respect to, when do you go into a hospital? When do you seek medical attention? Non-COVID illness is the sort of silent sort of killer in the background. So a bunch of these recommendations for patients for sure.
One final word, Dr. Parker, if you had to give a recommendation, therefore, to the government authorities at the moment, what would that be? Are you short of ventilators? Are you short at the moment? Do you believe the city now will need many more because there's a fear that Mumbai it could peak in the weeks ahead? What is your one recommendation at the moment from a hospital perspective?
We are absolutely short of ICU beds, number one. And I think we should, whatever the centers that are being opened, I think we should have certain basic amenities so that we can serve the poor and the population at large who are with COVID-19 and who come to centers with the expectation that we'll be taken care of. The institutes want to help the government as much as possible, but the shortage of ICU beds is definitely there, and the medical fraternity is actually exhausted and tired. There are nurses in my hospital who are testing positive day in, day after. There are consultants who have tested positive. There are ward boys who have tested positive. The ones who are giving food from the hospital to the patients, they are testing positive. So I think we need surely a very strong support from the government to help in this disaster.
Well, Dr. Parker, you've spoken clearly, you've spoken strongly. Amit Anand, you've given us very valuable experiences as a frontline doctor. I appreciate two top doctors joining me and telling us, I hope your messages will reach those who really need to listen to them. And that includes patients, that includes policy makers. Thank you both very much for joining us on our focus today on hospitals. From hospitals, I'm going to turn to even